Have you checked the children?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And you got Jaime and Fuego here.
And we are just minutes away from walking out the door to go watch the 2020, not remake, it is technically within the same universe of the original movies of The Grudge. So first, we're going to review the original Grudge movie, which is not the original Grudge movie, it's actually the original American remake Grudge movie. The Grudge movie was originally called Ju-on, and that was a Japanese horror film that had a number of sequels at this point.
And crossover stuff too, like we saw. Sanako versus Kayako.
Indeed. Now, this is the American remake starring Sarah Michelle Gellar, who actually does show up in the second one. And so we're gonna get into this first one. We will be reviewing all 4 Grudge movies over the course of the next week, so expect to see all those reviews out. Fuego hasn't watched 2 or 3 yet.
I don't think I've ever watched 2 or 3. I know Sarah Michelle Gellar has a smaller part in the second one, and then I didn't even know there was a third Grudge movie, at least on the American side of things. I know it's interesting though that Takashi Shimizu, he actually directed both his original incarnation in Japan and then came over for the American versions as well, directed those, but didn't script them.
Correct.
So yeah, it was under like a little bit of a different guise of sorts. But
So we're going to do this review like we do our normal reviews, which is talk about our overall thoughts, the story, the acting, the effects, all of that good stuff in turn. And I will start off by saying, because I have a feeling I'm going to be the more positive one of this, I still enjoy this movie. It does... So what year was this one, Fuego?
2004.
2004. Okay, so it does suffer from the mid-2000 horror tropes that were going around, and especially the J-horror, American remakes and stuff like that.
Big thing around now.
But I still think it holds up for what it was, and definitely more so than 2 and 3. 3 was straight to video and didn't even have the same 2 actors playing the 2 ghosts.
Says a lot.
So yeah, it does say a lot. But sticking with this first one, I still enjoy it. Yes, I did not jump nearly as much, and it did not unnerve me nearly as much as it did back in 2004. Quite frankly, a lot of movies have built on what The Grudge did, and they do it a little bit more tactfully and a little bit more cleverly and frankly scarily nowadays. But I remember at the time it really affecting me and like really unnerving me, and the whole aspect. Actually, I remember that being much more prevalent than it ended up being in the movie.
And the weird cat sounds too. Like...
Yeah, well, I always remembered anytime the kid opened his mouth in a scream, it was always the cat's scream instead, and that carries through. So there was some weirdness to it, but I still think it holds up, but it's not the greatest anymore. There's been a lot that has come out that has surpassed it, and I think if you really want the genuine creep factor from this particular story, you're better suited to go back to the original Ju-on as opposed to the original American Grudge movie.
Yeah, I've actually never seen any of the Ju-on films, and I know that they started out as 2 different little shorts that Takashi even did even before making the features. But this cast was more star-studded than I realized it was going to be. Ted Raimi and Bill Pullman, SMG obviously, and also the girl who I saw in various things from The Faculty. She plays the wife of the son of the mentally ill mother that Sarah Michelle Gellar comes to check in on.
The wife of the son of the mentally ill mother of Sarah Michelle Gellar? Jesus Christ.
My brother's friend.
Fucking don't do that again.
Was a scout in LA, so on and so forth. But, I feel like the acting is good in this, and I feel like the concept is interesting enough, but it's a little convoluted and unexplained until the very end of the film. Yeah. And that's why, as maybe watching this for the first time in its entirety, I think I'd seen bits and pieces at friends' houses when it first came out. I did not see this in theaters. I was not taken with the remakes of The Ring and The Grudge and stuff when they were first coming out. I wasn't super into that. So this was my first cognizant time actually sitting down and watching it from start to finish, and I saw the expanded unrated cut that had 7 more minutes. I'm not sure what specific scenes were added, but the end of the movie is actually very fulfilling, I must say. And there's also some bits with a jaw that goes missing that's pretty dope, I gotta say, and pushing the limits of what I would presume was PG-13 horror. But I mean, liked it, didn't love it, and I feel like the dialogue's a little stilted here and there, and but I mean, I feel like that's because of the fact that we have this Japanese director and the input from that side, even if he didn't script it. So it's still very moody and a creepy concept, and I just love Japanese culture and seeing Tokyo and everything. So yeah. I mean, I'm into it, but I don't love this movie. I appreciate it though.
So the story is about Sarah Michelle Gellar, who plays a exchange student from America that is now in Japan and has taken on a caregiving job to sort of make money on the side. I assume, or maybe it's for a credit. It doesn't really matter.
Volunteer. She's
volunteer for a credit. Okay.
Yeah, for a college credit because she's trying to finish her schooling abroad exchange student-ness.
So her assignment is this house where a previous caregiver had been assigned but didn't show up for work, and so she was sent in to kind of take over. And there's this American old white woman that can't really fend for herself. She's in her later years and needs to be cared for, obviously, in caregiving. And so Sarah Michelle Gellar goes, and before we even see that, we do see what happens to the original caregiver. And
Yoko.
that is when she's there trying to care for the woman. Unfortunately, this all takes place in a house that carries a curse, or a curse-like thing called a Ju-on. And it is basically anyone that steps inside the house gets killed by this ghost girl called Kayako. And most of the victims also see her also dead son Toshio. And so that's the whole long and short of the movie, is Sarah Michelle steps into the house and sees Kayako and is brought to the hospital, and then has to try and explain things, and then she finds out about the curse and has to try and stop it. And that's the long and short of the movie, without getting into spoilers for a movie from 2004. But I think it was an effective, again, it was originally done in Ju-on, so it is a remake, but the story still holds strong, in my opinion. What about for you?
No, I would agree, especially in the third act when it starts to unravel what really transpired with there's obsession about a certain character that we see at the very beginning, and just getting some information about that. And I mean, once I realized what actually had gone down, because I didn't either remember the lore or just, really never paid attention much when I saw bits and pieces of this film, I didn't vigilantly watch it at any particular time, so this was really like a fresh first-time viewing for me. And
uber-violent deaths can create a death curse, in other words.
Yes, exactly. And it's prefaced right at the very beginning of the film, and then the police officer, the head detective, who is, had friends investigating an incident 3 years before at the same home. It's all about residual negative energy and how it almost becomes a presence in and of itself. And I mean, we've learned about that in America. Apparently, that's thought culturally all across the world, and I find that fascinating that, we have different perspectives on these things, but it's still a lot of the same ideas, which I think is dope. And it's just nice seeing it from a different, just kind of viewpoint, I suppose. And I mean, it's still tropey things that we've heard before, and I'm not the biggest fan of ghost stories, and I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't absolutely just think this film was awesome or anything. But it's still moody and interesting with some of the twists and some of the explanation that we finally get when it finally happens.
So yeah,
because I want to spoil what happens, because I actually like that angle, but
we're not going to spoil.
I know.
But yeah, so I think the story is strong. I think it's it's less cookie cutter than all the horror stuff that we get nowadays, or most of the horror stuff that we get nowadays.
There's some legit motivation and explanation,
and disturbing imagery and stuff like that.
Very much so.
Which, by the way, as the movies go on, they get worse with that imagery, because it must be a different lighting crew or a different makeup crew, because the ghosts just are lit fully. So there's nothing scary about them at all. They just look like people painted whitish blue, and it's but nonetheless, we'll get to that when we get to those reviews.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring that up is, by comparison, this one is executed really well. So it's getting a little extra boost because I've seen 2 and 3 also.
Oh, I see.
Now let's get into the acting. Yeah, it is. It's getting some extra credit because of that. Now, acting wise, Sarah Michelle she's actually a bit more wooden than she is even in Buffy, because she's given more room to play in Buffy. But she does her job well. I mean, she's interesting enough to watch.
Yeah, she's supposed to be a little bit more frail and just kind of, I don't know, scarable and scarable in this, I guess. I don't really like her boyfriend very much. He looks like a third-rate Sam from Supernatural in a lot of ways, but I don't know. I thought the detectives were good, and even though he's not in a lot of the movie, I liked Sam Raimi's brother Ted in this. I thought he was good. Actually,
he was
a
you're
pleasant
right.
surprise.
He didn't come off in his usual B-movie manner. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he kind of elevated his stuff, and Bill Pullman opens up the movie with a
Forgot about
chilling
he was in it at
I
all.
had no idea he was in it.
Yeah, and then when that happened, I was like, I knew, I was like, I saw the opening and I was like, wait, that's Bill Pullman? Oh, I remember. Really? Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was into it because of that. It's funny, you see people pop up in these movies, like one of the main characters in 3 is Jill from the Saw franchise, the protege.
Yes, who I can't remember everything else I've seen her in, but she's been in various things. She was in The Stand, actually.
Oh, okay. I think her name was Jill, but nonetheless, it's so acting wise. Anyone else stand up? I agree with you on the detective specifically.
Yeah. I thought the lead detective was good.
What I wanted to bring up for the other bit of acting is the backstory of the spirit. And all of that, because all the acting involved there is good.
Yes.
I think exemplary, really.
Yeah. Because
so much so that they use those clips in the other 2 movies as well.
I see. Were they still in the fuzzy black and white, like kind of? And that's where, like, I'm just curious what was added in those 7 minutes. If they just peppered more gore, or
I'm
like,
curious too now. I didn't know that existed.
Exactly
that's why I might actually give you the $8 to get that version, because I don't have it.
It's fine.
And we'll just sell this to Zia or something.
Yeah. But
because we have this is the DVD that I watched, but apparently Fuego got one that's got 7 extra minutes in it. It doesn't look like this.
No, not at all. It says unrated director's cut on the top, just like with your
just like the
part
number 2 does.
Yeah. So
I got gypped. That you get, back in the day when DVDs were the main thing, you would get screwed if you were like buyers out of the gate.
Exactly, because they would want you to double dip, and they would eventually it's 6 minutes.
It's what they're trying to do with like the Midsummer director's cut, and like
it's an Apple Plus
long,
like the super cut of it they keep talking about.
They're like, ooh, there could be a new version for you to buy.
Yeah, the one thing that I found at least initially jarring, and then when I realized that was the structuring, I was more okay with it. And I guess this is just a little jump back to story, but I want to at least mention it. Is there's some time jumping as far as flashbacks go that give explanation. And at first, we see the narrative in real time, and then we jump back and we see like other characters, and I'm just like, okay. And then there's even more jumping back later in the film. It still works well, and we do get like a little of Pullman at the beginning, and then some more pull back to Pullman, at a later point. And so, yeah, I mean, acting from him I thought was strong, and when they pull the curtain back a little bit and you realize a little bit more what's transpiring, that is my favorite part of the film, is the third act. I think it's really strong.
Cool.
Yeah, acting wise especially.
So let's get into the effects then. Now there was special makeup effects and some digital effects. I was on the earlier end of the digital stuff, so they used it kind of sparingly. It was more frames being cut out and stuff like that to jank up her movements.
It didn't pull me out of it, honestly.
No, but I think the special makeup effects worked well in this because of the lighting. It didn't look cheesy. They didn't look blue. They looked ghostly. They looked disturbing, and they weren't overshown. So I thought the effects were all done really well in this one, especially.
Yeah. I think both were strong for both our younger kid and for our Kayako. I always forget his name for whatever reason.
Toshio.
Toshio. There you go. They were both convincing in their like actual performance, but also in the way that they were shot, the way that they were made up and done up and stuff like that. And I like that signature like creep crawl down.
It's still good.
And everything. It's
still
obviously
good.
Exorcist influenced a little bit more so the director's cut of Exorcist.
Wait till you see how wacky it gets by the third one, because they got a different actress, and you can tell. Like, that's the funny thing. Like, in Japan, these movies were done so well. They got the same Kayako, as well as I believe it was the same Kayako from the Japanese version.
No kidding?
Yeah, I believe so.
For the American version?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so. And that Kayako is also the Kayako they got to throw out the first pitch when they did Sadako versus Kayako.
Yeah.
They got the original actresses. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Sadako and Kayako movie was the original was the original Kayako too, not the one from the third movie. Okay. I gotta check. That's something I should have checked into that. Forgive me if any of that was incorrect, but I believe that's what I've heard over the years.
Yeah. Whereas I know this franchise was, I mean, American audiences enjoyed it, but it's like iconic at this point over in Japan. It's big time stuff. Yeah.
Now, finally, the sound design. I think we got to discuss because
it's a big part of it.
It's a big part of it in this one.
I mean, like you did
not as big a part as I thought. Like I remembered that being like the biggest thing, but there were a lot of times that she approached without that. And you didn't hear it until right when she was right in front of you and stuff. And I thought it was more like the dun of the Jaws, music, but instead it's used a little bit more sparingly than I thought. It's used more throughout the movies, but I still think it's effective. I still think the sound design is good. I still think, the creak of the boards and the thump of things approaching you and stuff like that. Yeah. I think the sound design was all good on this one.
Yeah, it plays a major part in the scares, and it obviously took on an iconicness in and of itself, which is why it carried over, as opposed to just having the imagery be the main thing. I mean, that sound is just as distinctive and memorable, obviously. So,
agreed. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it. We gotta wrap this up so we can go make our showing of the Grudge remake, but that's gonna do it for our review of the original 2004 The Grudge, starring Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah.
If you guys enjoyed the video, click the like button and subscribe to make sure you don't miss all the rest of those Grudge reviews coming at you within the next week. Also, ding the notification bell so you know exactly when they go up. If you are so inclined, while you're down in the description box, you can click the Patreon link and become a patron, so that way you can actually tell us movies to review and control us a little bit, puppeteer us a little bit.
We appreciate the input.
Indeed. So thank you guys very much for watching. Until next Grudge, I've been Cecil Laird.
Until next Grudge, I've been Jaime and Fuego.
And remember...
Stay.
What was that?
I don't know.